As a member of the EA Creator Network, I have been gifted DLC for The Sims 4, but all opinions remain my own. Thank you so much for watching. Hey everyone, it's AlluringSimmer here, back with another speed build, and today we are doing a 90s themed bedroom. This was really fun to do and kind of get creative with because, I was born in the 90s, mind you, it was the late 90s, but it was fun to kind of reminisce and make sort of a nostalgic room for myself. I took some inspiration from old 90s TV shows as well as some pictures of 90s bedrooms that I found on Pinterest, and that really helped me pull this build together. I feel like for the 2000s themed bedroom, I went for more of a gamer vibe with the old console and stuff like that. This one I was going for your generic teenage bedroom. Um, I do feel like there are definitely some similarities to the 2000s themed build, but I do feel like there was a lot of overlap in terms of how rooms were styled in both the 90s and the 2000s. I feel like with each decade, it kind of carries over into the next, and each decade kind of takes inspiration from the past one. So it does make sense that there is some overlap, but I do feel like I tried to use a few things that were distinct to the 90s, or at least distinct pieces that you would think of when you think of the 90s era. There are some things that I do wish I would have added in hindsight, but I think I kind of made do with what we had in the game, and I do feel like the style of the game is very geared towards 2014, maybe the 2010s. So it is a little bit harder to kind of create something that's so much further behind than the style of furniture that we have in game, but I made it work. I added a tapestry. I added a lot of vinyls. I added some in a crate, and then I believe I added some on the wall. And I also put those ribbons that you would earn in school from high school years. I used the lava lamp from Little Simsy's Cozy Gamer Kit. I think that really fit in well with the build. I also added in these strobe kind of lights. I don't know why I feel like that fit the aesthetic. I really wanted to add those disco globe lights, which I feel disco is obviously more 80s, maybe 70s, but I do feel like there was a very specific kind of light that was very popular in the 90s, but we don't have that in game. So I used the laser light show to kind of mimic that effect. We do have a vanity once again, but I feel like the things that I placed on the vanity were a little bit different. I was trying to go for having a lot of magazines. You'll see some that I placed on the floor, and I put these books on her vanity table, lots of makeup, nail polish, and perfume. I think one thing that I really wanted to do with this build was add a lot of clutter. I wanted to go for a messy sort of bedroom, not too messy, but there is a couple items scattered on the floor, little clothes in the corner, the board games. I was also trying to make sure to try and keep it to the essence of what the 90s was. I tried not to use any of the more modern tech stuff because I wanted to make it make sense for the time. So you'll see later on I added a little desk in the corner with an old school sort of computer, those big boxy ones. And I feel like even though I was born in the late 90s, there was a lot of aspects of the 90s again that carried over, and one of those things was obviously the computers. I feel like my computer looked almost exactly like the one that I ended up putting in this build, and it was kind of nostalgic to kind of put this together and also reminisce on my own childhood and use some of those aspects of what I remember from my childhood room in this build. um I added a lot of school memorabilia, you could see the what looks like a school sort of team picture. I added the ribbons as I mentioned before, and then I also added in the corner this little memory box with envelopes and papers, and there's also a cassette tape in there. I know it's not as distinct, I didn't really show it fully on the screen, but the reason why I picked that specific item was because there was a cassette tape and old CDs I have been using in the past build, I believe, as well as this one, like stuff from the Basement Treasures kit. I also included some of the stuff from the event rewards that we got. One of the things that I did add was the rotary like dialed telephone. I put that on the vanity table and I thought that it would make a lot of sense. I feel like that might be a little bit older than the 90s because I feel like I do remember having like a cordless phone, and not the rotary phone but like the ones where you press the buttons. The way that I'm like, I can't even think of the name. But there was a wall phone that we got as well, but I felt like it also looked older than like the 90s. I don't really know. I was just like, let's just try and capture the vibe. I do feel like when I think of like movies from like early 2000s, sort of 90s era, there was a lot of bedrooms where they would have that type of phone. So maybe it was like slowly transitioning out as we got into the 2000s decade. I also added a little hamster from Little, I was going to say Littlest Pet Shop, what? From the My First Pet stuff pack. And I wanted to add like some sort of small pet in the room. I was thinking either a fish or this, but I felt like this just, I don't know, it just captured it with like the colors. And honestly, it was just nice to be able to use My First Pet stuff in a build. I don't feel like I use it that often. I don't feel like I take the time to use a lot of the stuff that I feel like are more geared towards child sims. And I also don't feel like I play with child sims that often. So I just tend not to use that pack as much. Not that, you know, like a young adult or elder couldn't have, you know, a hamster. I just feel like it's a common, like, kid's first pet, you know? Hence the name. I also added in some like board games in the corner, some vinyls in the crates, as well as like a record player. And then I added like the journal from Parenthood, a backpack that had like some writing on it. And then one last thing that I put on the shelf earlier was I put a digital camera. I feel like digital cameras were like slowly getting in, maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, but I kind of added it just as a feature to sort of pay homage to film cameras, like the ones where you would have to go and develop the film. I feel like people still use them now kind of to get that effect that you get only using like film that you can't really get with digital cameras unless you use filters and stuff like that. However, I don't think we have a camera like that in the game. So Sims team, if you're hearing this, then maybe consider to add that in an update or something. That would be really cute. I know we have the Polaroid cameras and I was considering using that for this, but I feel like they looked a little too modern for the 90s vibe I was going for. I also added an abacus. I believe this came with one of the most recent kits. And part of the reason I added it, it just reminded me of like being in being at like the doctor's office, and they always had those like bead, like, I don't know how to explain them. I'm sure that someone who's experienced this knows exactly what I'm talking about. They were like little beads you could like move around on like a wire, and they sometimes had like really colorful abacuses as well. So I just wanted to sort of, I don't know, reference that by using the abacus that we have in game now. Also on the wall, I had added like a little rainbow fish looking thing. If you know that book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's definitely a reference to that, but none of the colors are exactly the same as the actual rainbow fish. But I thought it'd be cute to add that on the wall. And then I just added in a few more like little clutter pieces that kind of really tied the build together. I hope that you guys enjoy the speed build as much as I enjoyed building it. It was really fun, and I can't wait to do the next decade, which is going to be 80s, and hopefully will be out next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below what your favorite part of the build was and what you're looking forward to in the 80s themed builds, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned to the end for screenshots and little video clips of our sim. Bye!